How did we get into the Highway 1 South is a question most people ask us. And what caused you to pick up that topic? We're sort of known for doing our history projects. And after doing our California missions, we thought about doing another history project, maybe the Gold Country or one of those. And we were asked by our publisher, Linden Publishing, mainstream traditional publisher, to have a meeting down in their office with Richard and Kent and Jaguar Bennett, the publicity man, and all of these, the whole group, to plan this next project, to do something maybe on Highway 1.
And that sounded kind of neat to us because Highway 1 is pretty exciting, and I know I haven't been to some of the northern coastline areas, but Janice, having grown up in Santa Cruz, knew that area. I knew Southern California because I lived down in Southern California, grew up down there, and I would go to Huntington and Laguna Beach in that area when I had time. But to go all the way up to the Oregon border was kind of exciting.
We did the north, then it was time to get into the south project. So we turned in the manuscript, we were good to go with that. Usually takes about a year. Once the manuscript is complete with all the paintings and the text and researching it and writing. And then we use that year to explore and research the Southern California area. I really think it needs to be developed and separated to central to south. And he said, well, let me talk about it. Let's see how that works on our publishing schedule. And he came back and he said, well, how soon can you get the central done in order to get that deadline met?
So like yesterday, let's
again,
go. Yeah.
we cut the book in half, the south part, we cut it in half and focused on fleshing out what we missed, which was another 50 paintings for Pat.
Right.
Another whatever amount of words, another 30, 40,000 words, whatever it was that we had to get into.
So that book, the central book, went from Bixby Bridge down to Ventura. And we had 100 paintings that I painted, and we still had all that Southern California material yet to come.
Well, and everything else. And then that took us then to creating and completing the Highway 1 South, which is the focus of this piece today.
Exactly. And our focus was to head to the Point Hueneme Lighthouse.
Right. In our central, we actually close out that book with the agricultural theme.
That's right. We get to the very end and look to my right, and here is this lighthouse. And it's really a kind of it's not the romantic, dramatic lighthouse on a point that extends out into the ocean with the white, the white cylinder and the red roof and so on. It's a functional California modern type of a building. Kind of boring, as a matter of fact. But here comes Janice with the dog.
So then we head down a little bit past the lighthouse to a discovery that was off the beaten track again.
Yes.
The Point Mugu Naval Air Station.
Missile Park,
Missile
right?
Park, and has the missiles there. And the Point Mugu Naval Air Station has these missiles that a lot of things that you wouldn't expect. And there's no museum, there's no gift store, there's no picnic tables. It's just a nice little area with these historical pieces of weaponry that's very startling, very sobering to see. Leo Carrillo. Do we hit the Leo Carrillo Park before?
Okay, the highway is opening up. We're now right next to the ocean. And looking straight ahead, I am just blown away with the view. and it's just on my left is the Santa Monica mountain range.
Right.
And then on the right, I see the coastline and the road that goes on and curves around a point straight out in front of us. And I stopped Janice, she's driving the car, you see, and I get to see a lot more than she does. But I want to paint that big, open, wide entrance to California, Southern California, the
Right.
Highway
Right.
1.
And that was the Leo Carrillo
That's right.
State Beach right there.
That's right.
And it was right after coming through that mountain range,
Yes.
out of First Oxnard, going through the mountain range up through that area.
Right.
And then you come out of that mountain range and then wow, there is
Yeah.
that coastal
It was a
road
wow
and the
moment.
ocean. It was a wow moment. And so then we come into Malibu and you get the 27 miles of scenic beauty.
Is it 27
I
or
think
22?
it's 27. Tell me if I'm wrong, or I'll go buy the book again.
Okay. A
See
lot of
see what
beauty
I
there.
missed. But they're right. There is a lot of miles of scenery there to see. But one of the first things that we see, of course, is the double pier, which is an unusual setup for that. One was
Right.
pretty functional. One was more an entertainment pier.
Yes.
But a beautiful, beautiful scenery. And then the Adamson House.
That was kind of wild, wasn't it, to stop by there and see that house with all that tile on the outside and beautiful, colorful, kind of mosaic tile and so on, the palm trees, and hey, it was just a beautiful location.
A very interesting piece to that building, to walk around and look at it, to view the tile, and then we find out in research that they tiled an awful lot of buildings in the Southern California area,
Right.
including the Sarah Retreat, which
That's
is
right.
just up above the road. That also was going to be a home for one of the family members, and that also has some of that distinctive tile.
Right.
Even as we got to Zuma Beach, and here's tile
right, at the
around the sign for the
Right.
Zuma Beach, and we know it had to come from the
Sure.
Adamson family.
Right. But
Ringe.
now we're going through Malibu now.
Right. Back on the road after the Adamson House and going up and checking out the Sarah Retreat, another peaceful, quiet place.
Right.
Then on the left is this beautiful, beautiful building that we pull into, and of course it's the Getty Villa. We have to go to the Getty Villa. Or up above, and we didn't want to miss Pacific Palisades up there because that's Sunset Boulevard, and Sunset Boulevard's pretty famous.
But that Shrine Lake.
The Shrine Lake was a discovery for us, and Shrine Lake is extraordinary. I, lit major here, was especially touched by the quotes, the religious, first of all, bringing everybody together in a moment of unity,
Yes.
not the divisiveness that we see so much in our culture today. but all of the representations from the different religions, the Judaism, Christianity, you've got sculpture, you've got a Gandhi, part of his ashes are buried there. So much of that is representative in the Shrine Lake. Leave that and drive just a little bit keep going south just a little bit, but still on Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, yes. Yes, Will Rogers. Of course, an iconic figure, probably in the 30s and so on, and during the vaudeville era. And we had just seen a musical in Fresno, The Good Company Players, a wonderful musical.
Will Rogers Follies.
Yes, the Will Rogers
Yes.
Follies, and the ranch house, and that was kind of neat. And of course, the ranch itself was, again, an exciting stop.
Yeah, a beautiful landscaped area, authentic buildings.
Right.
There, that's one of the fun discoveries that we have.
Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze and listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me off forever, but I ask you please, don't fence me in. Just wanna ride to the ridge where the west commences and gaze at the moon till I lose my senses. I can't look at hobbles and I can't stand fences. Don't fence me in. Loose, let me straddle my old saddle underneath the western skies. On my cayuse, let me wander over yonder till I see the mountain rise. I want to ride to the ridge where the west commences and gaze at the moon till I lose my senses. I can't look at hobbles and I can't stand fences. Don't fence me in. I'm the roving kind, so if you don't mind, all that I can say is let's be on our way.
Hitting after the Will Rogers Ranch, on down PCH, we come to the Santa Monica parallel piers that are iconic and a lot of interesting details. One was a pleasure pier and one was a functional pier, side by side.
Yes,
So
it's Santa Monica.
interesting piece in Santa Monica, right.
So remember, we could see the Ferris wheel, we could see all the entertainment stuff down there, and yet we had to go under that tunnel, remember, just to to move on down to get to Muscle Beach.
Before we get to Muscle Beach, don't forget, that's where supposedly Route 66 ends. There's a sign there at the Santa Monica Pier that says, end of the trail. A diversion now off of our PCH takes us inland a little bit to the El Pueblo de Los Angeles.
Of course, of course.
And we know this because of our Remembering the California Mission and discovering the La Plaza Church
Yes.
that was an Asistencia, which is a submission
Uh,
of the San Gabriel Mission.
that's right.
Olivera Street, it's a very famous, world-renowned
Right.
street, and there, the El Pueblo, it's fascinating history of some of the earliest time in our state.
And the Pio Pico house.
And the Pio Pico House, yeah, dates back to 1781. And that was when Los Angeles, which was known as El Pueblo de Nuestra Senora Reina de Los Angeles. Don't check me on my Spanish.
It's not bad.
Not bad, not too
Janice.
bad. My 3 years of high school Spanish did it.
Yeah.
It was founded by Spanish settlers on a site southeast of Olivera Street near the Los Angeles River, and the association with the missions, of course.
Right.
So all of that. Then we hit the South Bay beaches.
Okay. El
Of
Segundo.
Hermosa to Palos Verdes. So starting with El Segundo.
Good.
I
Good.
said it
That means
right.
the second.
Thank you. It said
Yes.
that means a second. I forgot that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
You're right.
said-
Refinery in California after Standard Oil
Okay. Okay.
of California. And then we have the aviation industry that came in as
That's
well.
right.
And that pretty much is
Sure.
besides the beach,
Yeah.
is the industries that carry that place. But you know what's best about that is the El Segundo Fish Company. And I'm sorry, guys, we have to do a shout out for you because that is the best fish and chips on the whole Pacific coast.
I think so too.
Well, Oregon to Mexico, maybe.
So we're going through El Segundo and we're going through Manhattan Beach, and Redondo, and they all kind of blend together, don't they?
They do, and they're all kind of connected with the Strand.
Yes.
And you've got some really famous sculpture on the Strand. You've got the Tim Kelly Memorial Statue, the Hermosa
I remember
Pier
that, yes.
surfer statue that paid tribute to lifeguards and surfers.
Right.
So you've got some of those spotted along the way on that. Runs from Torrance in the south, approximately 20 miles north to Santa Monica.
Right.
That Strand, and it is jam-packed with skaters and walkers and
Bicycle?
joggers and yes.
Talk about a
women
walking
push
trail. At
people.
Redondo Beach, we pulled into that parking lot, and I forget what we were poking around to get some more pictures and so on.
I know what
And-
you're going to say.
Yes, and this wall, this whale wall.
Wall.
Yes.
It was so big, and it had this wonderful, wonderful little depictions of the big whales and the little whales and around.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
we leave that area and we continue on the Pacific Coast Highway until we come to the Palos Verdes Drive.
Yes.
And we do this frequently. We try to stay on the coast as much as we can, and our roads, like Pacific Coast Highway, sometimes goes inland. So we kind of stay to the right and
Exactly.
don't want to go too far. We're in the ocean.
Right.
Come to some world-renowned buildings. The La Venta Inn
That was beautiful.
was designed by the Olmsted brothers.
Right.
Did the landscaping in Central Park in New York. The library,
Right.
which is another extraordinary historical
Yes, it
building on the
was.
registers. But we follow that ocean. We love the ocean, and it keeps taking us along the dramatic curves and everything till we come to the lighthouse, the Point Vicente lighthouse. Sure enough, the name is
Yes.
familiar, named after the father Vicente, that was the father at the mission Buenaventura in
Of
Ventura.
course.
Did that.
Nice grounds up there. We walked all over there and went into the gift store.
Whale watching. You
Very-
can see whales in there.
You know what's wild is that all this time we are going along the coast and we have never seen a whale.
No, we've never seen the actual whale. There
Yeah.
have been a couple of times when I was thinking, there's a spout, right?
I'm not
but
sure.
was there or not? But no, and you hear of people that actually see them. And one of the discoveries that we had was the Korean Bell of Friendship.
Oh, yes.
And it's overlooking on that Palos Verdes Drive with
Right.
Wayfarers Chapel on the side. Extraordinary building in its own right. But we come to that Korean Bell of Fellowship, and it's this beautiful thing, and it was given to the United States in appreciation from South Korea.
Yes.
So it's a
yes.
beautiful image.
And then coming down, just around the corner, looking south, it is that massive, massive port area.
Right.
And it's just ships and ships and docks and just so confusing down there.
Right. One of the things that I thought was not only confusing but intimidating was that Vincent Thomas Bridge. But before we crossed the bridge, there was a sign that said Japanese Village.
That's right.
I didn't know anything about the Japanese Village. It was at one point a very thriving Japanese village. And when Pearl Harbor was attacked in 1941, as we know our history, we had it in Fresno as well.
Right.
The FBI rounded up all the adult males on the island, put them in jails. And then by February 1942, the infamous Executive Order 9066, we know that well,
Yes.
by President Roosevelt, ordered all those terminal island Japanese interned at Manzanar, up in the Central Valley again, actually more
That's
east. And those are the first ones on the West Coast to be interned.
Sculpture itself is so poignant because it has these two fishermen there who are reaching down with their nets to haul in these fish. Right on.
So
right on.
profound to
Yes.
see that, though.
Yes.
And then to know what they had
Yes.
and then what they lost. 1971, the descendants came back and formed an organization, the Terminal Islanders Club,
Yes.
to draw attention to the history, number one, and to do what they could to preserve that,
Yeah.
what's there.
Well, once you can find it, it's beautiful, and you will not forget it.
You won't forget it.
As we were driving, it was starting to get dark. Another one that was a surprise was that submarine museum.
That is at Seal Beach. And the sign says, and it's a very simple museum, and the memorials are there, and
Yes.
it says, hallowed ground. Be careful where you walk. This
Yes.
is hallowed ground.
Walk softly,
Thank
wasn't it?
you. Thank you. Walk softly. This is hallowed ground.
Yes. Riviera in Long Beach, I said, oh no. That hotel that has 10,000 rooms in it, and it's how many stories high with
Something like 15
multi-angles
stories.
of this and that. Oh, Pat, you've got to do that. That's really,
But you drive into an area and significant. We need to cover that.
well, that one also is that one of the little kiosks out there on the pier said, make sure you don't, omit the Villa Riviera.
Yes,
And that's when we took the road down there and popped into,
The Astronaut
that-
Islands.
yes,
Had our fish and chips on the ocean, and what are those little islands out there?
yeah. They're
Astronaut
actually
Islands.
oil derricks out there, but they're named for our early American astronauts.
And the only ones in the United States that are camouflaged.
Yes.
It looks like a resort.
Yes.
Newport is one of my favorite places to go. My brother-in-law lives in Newport. What a lucky
Yes.
person to
Yes.
live in Newport. It's beautiful. I love the fish, going for the fish there.
Yeah. Down to Balboa and Newport, that area all the time when I lived in Southern California. And the crab cooker was certainly, it's been there forever, it seems like. And we wanted to go in and get something to eat, and yet we were on a time limit, and the crowds, the lines all the way around there. Just park the car, Janice, let's try to get in there. Oh, do we have time to wait? I think I got, I forget what it was. Of course, the chowder,
The chowder, world famous. there on the
Yes,
chowder.
yes. It was worth the wait. And again, I love to go back to a place that has been there so long. And I guess they're here to stay. So that was wonderful to go back and revisit.
As we pick up the journey through Laguna Beach, we pass the greeter, the statues of the greeter, and we wave at him long past where he used to greet everybody and became an icon of Laguna Beach. The Laguna Festival of Arts is rather significant, and everybody knows that, and it's very famous, but what I
I
expect...
think everybody who doesn't really know about the greeter knows about the Laguna Festival of Arts.
Yes.
And that, of course, is where they have live presentations on stage from classic paintings in history, and that's a magnificent experience. If you haven't been there, you must.
And that's always been on my list. You've been there, but I have not. And
Right.
a lot of my friends have been there and talked about it. And I thought, It's got to be number one. That's it.
But on down the road, we come to Dana Point.
Right. And that's where Highway 1 ends in Dana Point. The title of our book is An Artist and a Writer Travel Highway 1 Books, North, Central, and South. But just as we ended Highway 1 in Leggett, up in the Northern California area, so Highway 1 ends at Dana Point.
Then we kept moving down, and one of my favorite missions is San Juan Capistrano, because that's the original. That's the way that the fathers and the Indians built it. And you go to it and see the huge vaulting and see the scale of a figure compared to the architecture. And it's still standing, although it's in a good part of it's in ruins, except for the Father Sarah chapel. And that, Janice, was one of the most exciting things, was to go into that chapel and realize that that was the last chapel that Father Sarah preached in.
Right.
Certainly
Right.
a part of history.
And it's also considered to be one of the oldest structures in the state.
Yes.
So it's amazing when you think back to Mission era more than 200 years ago that there's anything left from that era. So that's a significant building.
Going to the Leo Carrillo Ranch. That's in Carlsbad, right?
That is in Carlsbad, and that is we started this journey of the Leo Carrillo State Beach. And at that time you said, oh, I remember my mom talking about Leo Carrillo. So I thought that rancho was extraordinary, those historic buildings. But what I was especially struck with were the film canister depicted on the gates when you walk in.
Right.
That is representative of his film career.
Yes, huge. I didn't realize he was in that many films.
Yeah.
I knew him only as being part of the Cisco Kid. It was a very famous radio program, and I think it went on TV later on. But also, a lot of people, unless you're grown up in Southern California, don't realize that he was a mainstay of the Rose Parade, the Tournament of Roses, every year. And
Well, his ancestry too
Yes.
goes back, that depicts his father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather of some of the early settlers here in California.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
interesting history on him. But you especially are moved by his Palomino.
Oh, his horse, his beloved horse. And I think that, again, to go down there and see pictures of the horse and read inscription on one of the buildings where he says, the tall cross on the hill of my rancho marks the resting place of my greatly beloved Palomino horse, Conquistador. I do not consider it strange that I thus hallow the grave of a horse. Further, I love this horse greatly. He typified for me all the magic of yesteryears of California, when caballeros rode like centaurs amid these same rounded hills, and the neighing of their stallions drowned the voice of the wind itself. So beautiful that he wrote that, and to feel that emotion he had for that horse.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. Well, something else that's significant about Oceanside is we pick up the coast road now, the coastal route that goes on down to Mexico, all the way down, follows the coast road, and the historic 101 section.
Heading down to Del Mar, and we saw a Del Mar racetrack. And remember that weekend that California Chrome was racing down there, and I had to go see California Chrome. I never made it.
The Del Mar racetrack, and then we come into the Torrey Pine.
Remember, I wanted to paint a little branch of the Torrey Pine, and we had to find a place where I could actually pick a little branch. Pardon me. But I had to be careful that I would damage to the few pines there were. I was able to take a picture of one of the branches there. But that whole golf course down there called Torrey Pines, and
Yeah.
that is a world famous golf course.
Absolutely. All the big names in golfing have played there.
That's right.
When I drove onto the Torrey Pines into that forest reserve there, I thought I'd see a forest. And it was
wasn't.
very wispy, very sparse trees, but certainly one of the only places that Torrey Pines
Sure
grew.
got it.
something significant.
Exactly.
So over and over that happened. The glider port there, world famous glider port, one of the first.
Glider port. I
Their
didn't
gliders take off from it,
And they
like an
started
airport.
standing up there on that cliff with all this paraphernalia on their back, and they're jumping off this cliff with who knows what's going to happen to them.
I don't know.
uh,
They is great, but I wanted to see that Mount Soledad Memorial.
Yes.
And so coming in from the Torrey Pines, we drove all over that place and could not find it. We saw all sorts of things in La Jolla, and it's a beautiful, beautiful area. But I discovered the way to get to Mount Soledad is off of I-5, and then it's really quick, 15 minutes up there. But that drive was, you're climbing, you're climbing, you're climbing, you're climbing. You get to the top, and you don't want to speak because it is such a powerful image of that memorial that's up on the top of this hill that's like a 360-degree area
Right.
that you can see all over San Diego and the ocean, La Jolla shores, and all of that. And it's just a profound image with the tower, the cross, the big white cross that goes
Yes.
up there, the black plaques around there that give tribute to those that lost their lives in the
That's
wars.
right. What was really kind of neat, I thought, and just, again, we were very, very quiet when we were up there, and so was everybody else.
Everybody was.
It was hallowed ground. And the brickwork around there and the various plaques where you saw the photographs, okay, of these World War II veterans and told about their families, and again, to have their actual pictures embedded into the brick wall around
Exactly.
there.
Well, and it started with the World War II veterans. That was the purpose.
Yeah.
As a tribute
Yeah.
to them, and they've expanded it out. And now I think if I recall,
Yes.
even Desert Storm, Iraq, and Vietnam veterans. and Afghanistan veterans.
Yes.
There, they brought it forward.
And you know what was just absolutely amazing to me? Nobody's talking. Nobody's saying a word, and we're looking at the names and the pictures, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this butterfly flies around us.
And lit
And
on
it was
one of those
almost
plaques.
symbolic of these people being there.
The spirit.
It was, again, a wonderful moment. And I wanted to paint that butterfly, but
It didn't stay still long enough for you.
No.
So after leaving La Jolla and into the Gaslamp Quarter,
yes, yes.
and that's kind of a wild and crazy place, but there's so much history there.
Oh yeah, remember Point Loma?
I do remember Point Loma. That's a beautiful lighthouse. In fact, I remember when my sister-in-law Nancy lived down in San Diego, and she commissioned you to do a painting of that Point Loma.
Remember the Coronado Island? The
Oh, absolutely.
Hotel that we had to paint that. No, I had to paint
You
that.
had to paint it. I had to just ooh and ah.
Yes, yes.
And I did a lot of ooh and ah.
It's a fantastic place.
USS Midway was launched just after World War II in 1945, and at that point was the largest ship in the world. There's a lot to see, and many people explore the museum for about 3 hours during their stay. The museum is open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with the last admission at 4 p.m. The early hours are a lot less crowded, so be sure to get here as early as possible. Sit in on a trap and cat talk where docents explain the flight operations for landing and takeoff.
It's been wonderful. I'm very thrilled to be here. I really have nothing to report from the stage, the stage that's where Churchill lives. When he really travels, doesn't he? Boy, he's been around. He's been to Casablanca more than Humphrey Bogart. But I really had a wonderful trip. Wherever I went, the soldiers posted me, and now I'm back. The guy can stand getting hot for just so long. You know, the weather down there is like it is here. Of course, they have a light sprinkle now and then. Light sprinkle, that's South Pacific. Command the boats, boys. The island disappeared again. I understand that Crosby just went to England. Really, I thought London had all the fog it needed.
Last stop, San Diego and Imperial Beach.
Well, Imperial Beach, we discovered as we headed on down
Yeah.
towards the end of our sojourn down to the border, the Mexican border,
Yeah.
we discovered the Tijuana estuary.
Oh, I loved it.
And it was so unique because
Yeah.
we're getting closer and closer. It's right there on the beach or right on the ocean.
Right.
And it was one of those little side roads that we took off.
That's
and there's
right.
this beautiful modern building
Yeah.
that was just an absolutely delight to tour it, to walk through there,
Yes.
walk out to the marsh area and look at people with their telescopes and
Yes.
magnifying glasses, really looking
A beautiful educational center.
then we hit Imperial Beach, and Imperial Beach, I'm reminded of the northern coast. I was especially moved when we got to Imperial Beach, and I was reminded of the Pelican Beach. The Pelican Beach was a difficult one to find. We wandered off, accidentally turned into a restaurant and found a little tiny sign off the side of the road that told
Yes.
us how to get there, a little bumpy driveway, dirt road. Got there, but there was nobody on that beach.
That's right.
Absolutely nobody. And it was so still. It was beautiful, but so still. And I couldn't help but contrast that in my mind of our Southern California beaches. The Imperial Beach is like what I would have expected.
Realizing that our trip was just about over, in coming up with a painting of Imperial Beach, you could see off to the right very slightly the buildings and the curve of the coast in San Diego, and on the left towards the Mexican border. Yeah. Well, again, in coming up with a painting to kind of finish the book, I saw these two red chairs were out on the beach, and nobody was there. But I thought, you know what, the empty chairs, and I looked to my right, looking north, and I saw these houses that were right along the sand there. And one of these houses had a tall American flag. And I thought, that's it.
That's right.
That's the last painting for the book. It shows us reaching the furthest south part of our trip. We can take these paintings, condense them into a book, and that was our first book. We did a second book, and actually total we've done now 8 books on Fresno history, California history, and still have some more to go, don't we? Books will last forever. We love our California.